In this video, I'm actually going to show you how to properly transfer over one-to-one copy of MicroMV using the FireWire port. I know a lot of people, what they do is they use the Svideo instead, or they use the composite, even worse, to go and transfer and stuff like that, because they believe you need Movie Shaker in order to work, and Movie Shaker only works in 32-bit OSs. Actually, you don't. There is another way to do it, and it's with professional editing software, of course. So I'm going to go and bring the camera up, and I'll show you pretty much how I transfer MicroMV. So one of the things that you'll definitely require, obviously, is a machine that has a FireWire port on it, because without the FireWire connection, where you're not going to be able to transfer DV format using FireWire, of course. So preferably I get one that has, as you can see right here, and let me get the camera there, or 1394 port right there, which is a 4-pin adapter. Some of them will have a 6-pin, and then some of them will even have a FireWire 800 port, but you do need a machine that has a FireWire port. Now, another thing too, you can go if you're using a more modern system is, they do have machines that have Thunderbolt on it, like the Lenovo T series, for example, on some of the more modern, like 7 and 8 gen, that actually has Thunderbolt, and you can use the Apple pretty much Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2, and then Thunderbolt to FireWire, and then you got to use, of course, a 6 to a 4-pin adapter and so forth. So, you're going to need a lot of adapters, essentially, if you're using a more modern system. Now, I preferably prefer and keep it simple. I'll use a Windows 7 machine. But, of course, if you're using a Windows 7 machine, it's quite a bit old right now. And the problem is, it's going to need to be serviced. So, don't think you're going to buy a $50 laptop off eBay or Facebook or whatever, and that's going to work and you're going to be good. No, you're going to have to change thermal paste. Look to see that the fans are not worn out. Everything else, of course, the rest of the hardware works and stuff, and do your upgrades and stuff. So something like a $50 or even a free machine could turn easily into a $200-300 project just on the machine alone, because you're gonna have to bring it up to snuff. And the reason why I say that is because thermal paste dries out. And let's just say you run that machine, you're doing an hour-long video, you're trying to transfer, you're trying to edit or whatever, the machines go overheat and shut down and stuff. So you do have to have it serviced, and you do have to have it in good working condition, pretty much. As a matter of fact, I'm actually going to do a separate video on that, because I'm doing a few upgrades to this. Like, I'm putting an i7 processor in it. I'm changing the batteries out and everything. So I did get it working enough already for this video. So, it works great, actually. But we're going to be doing some upgrading. That's a whole separate video. But either way it goes, you want to have a machine with FireWire port. I'm using Windows 7. You can see that's a 64-bit OS. Now, people said you can't transfer MicroMV on a 64-bit OS, so I'm going to prove them wrong. Yes, you can. You don't have to just use Movie Shaker to do it. I'll just put it that way. So what I like to use to transfer MicroMV one-to-one is, I'll use Sony Vegas Pro 11, and you can see 64-bit. It works for this because it came out during the era when MicroMV was around and stuff, and it works great. Later on, they ended up dropping support, and some earlier versions had problems crashing and stuff. I find this version's the one that works the best, so we're going to click on it. Of course, it's a paid program, so you will have to have a license for it, or you'll have to find ways where you get one that has a license on it. You have to figure that out on your own, but Sony Vegas Pro 11 is the one that you need. That will actually work with MicroMV. So once you get done doing that, you go plug your camera into FireWire port, of course. And if this is the first time you plugged it into the computer, you will have to give it about 5 or so minutes for it to be able to search Windows Update to find the drivers. It'll automatically find the drivers through Windows Update and install them. And then once it's done, it'll say it's successfully installed the driver. So then you can open up Sony Vegas Pro 11. All you got to do is here, go File. Then you go over here, Capture. So you see Capture Video. Okay, instead of selecting DV, I'm going to select HDV or SDI. So we're going to select that instead of DV. So we're going to do that there. And then it's going to pull up our transport controls, as you can see right there. There's our transport controls. All you have to do, push play. You can hear the camcorder start up. It will control the camcorder too as well. And you can see our video is playing back. So I could go ahead and queue up. Okay. So we'll go ahead and queue up to where we want to start the video. So we'll start it right there. Okay. And then right where we queue up, or you could just do the whole entire tape. It depends on what you're transferring, of course. So we'll go and stop it right after this, about this thing. We'll start the capture. Okay, so right after this, or of course you can go ahead and, okay, and then we'll go ahead and capture it. So we'll start capturing. And you can see there, it is capturing the footage right now. And you can see there, no drop frames so far. So we'll go ahead and allow that to capture, of course. And it's going to go ahead and capture the footage 1-to-1. I'm not using Svideo composite. It's doing it through FireWire. So we'll go and let it capture some footage here. And you can see it's working great. Now, one thing to note though, is that you do want to go ahead and make sure that the machine you're using to transfer is not the one you have like 10 browsers open, you're doing YouTube, you're doing your work, whatever the case is. You preferably want to have a machine dedicated to transfers, because if you're using a machine that's doing a lot of tasks, you're going to be doing a lot of swapping files. And guess what? You're going to have drop frames and stuff. So always have a machine dedicated for transfers, and this goes for transfer companies. And transfer companies know better. Typically, they'll have one machine that they'll use for transfer, and then they'll have the other one for editing, and then they'll have like 10 groups or 18 groups of that. So, but there you go. You're capturing, and we'll go ahead and I'll let it go and capture a little bit more. You know, so we'll capture, you know, decent amount of footage here. And that's actually the tape itself. That's not the computer dropping frames. This tape actually has problems where every few seconds, for some reason, it drops out. And you've probably seen this tape when I actually tested this camcorder. I was doing it during while I was testing the camcorder. It's the same tape. Okay, but here you go. So we went ahead and captured some footage. And now you just hit stop. So we stop the transport. Okay, and then here's your footage right here. So if you wanted to keep it simple, you could go ahead and just take this here, drop it down there, and then there's your footage right there. And then of course you could split, take out parts you don't want. You could go ahead and splice them together. Do whatever you want to do. Is add transitions, whatever. So we'll go and play it. And you can see there, now it's playing back from the hard drive and not the tape. So now it's in digital format, essentially. And then there you can go ahead and encode it to whatever file you want and stuff. And you got your footage, essentially, off the tape. Pretty easy. You don't need Movie Shaker to do it. You could also do it with Sony Vegas Pro 11. And also, I believe, iMovie 8 on the MacBook Pros, on the older ones. Not on this one. This is a modern one. But on the older Macs, you can go and use iMovie 8, and you can also use it to transfer MicroMV, pretty much using FireWire that way too on a MacBook. On the PC, you use Sony Vegas Pro 11. No movie maker will not work, and other software typically don't work with MicroMV. I think QuickTime might actually work, and I have to test that. But either way it goes, I like to use Sony Vegas Pro 11. So if you have MicroMV, look to getting Sony Vegas Pro 11, and now you'll be able to do your MicroMV tapes 1-to-1, and you could also use it to do your HDV. You could use an SDI adapter, your DV boxes. You know, Sony Vegas Pro 11 is actually pretty powerful software, so you could even use it to edit if you want to and stuff like that. But typically what I do after I'm done is I'll take the file and I'll actually go and transcode it, and I'll edit it onto the more modern machine. So I can use this one dedicated for transfer. So if I got a batch of 9 tapes or whatever, I could just go ahead and transfer the tapes on this one. I'll go and take my external drive. I'll take the files. I'll put it onto this one here. And then I do all my editing and stuff on the more modern machine. And that's the way you should do it. If you're doing it professionally especially, you should have one machine dedicated to transfer and another machine dedicated to editing. And you should have several stations, like 10 plus stations, where you got, 2 of each essentially to do that. And that's how you do a proper transfer. Don't be lazy. Don't do it through composite. Don't do it through Svideo. That's the lazy and that's the crap way of doing it. I hate when transfer companies do it that way because you're degrading the quality of the video and stuff. If it's a DV format, keep it DV. Don't go ahead and use a crap Gato, for example, to go ahead and hook up through composite on the MicroMV camcorder and transfer. You're doing your customers a disservice doing it. Yes, some might not notice that, but on a much larger screen, you're going to notice it. If it's DV, keep it DV. You know what I mean? And typically, like, when I'm going and doing, I also deinterlace and all that other stuff, then I'll upconvert it and everything. So it looks nice when they're watching it on a larger screen and stuff. You're not going to notice it on a small screen, but on a much larger screen, you will notice the artifacting. You will notice, you'll notice a lot of stuff if you don't do it properly. So do it correctly. If it's DV, keep it DV and do a transfer. Don't do a capture. And of course, if you're doing a capture and stuff, use like an IO data GV USB 2, an ATI 600 works very well and stuff like that, and use that to do your capture, or even using the Matrix SDILE adapter or whatever it is, or even the DV box is honestly better than the Elgato crap capture cards that people like to use or whatever case. They're not good. I'll just put it that way. They don't capture at lossless. They capture at a very low bit rate. You'll notice they're artifacting and micro blocking and all that, especially in dark scenes and stuff using those cards. That's why I don't recommend them. And I'll do another video showing what capture card to use for VHS or 8mm or high 8 tapes and stuff like that. But either way it goes, this covers at least the MicroMV part of it.